Hello everyone, I'm Instructor Jerry Roberts and this is PowerShell Scripting. In this video we're going to learn a bit about scripting. First we're going to learn what a script actually is, how to script in PowerShell ISE, how to use Notepad to script, and some other scripting tools that are available. So first of all, what is a script? Script is pretty much just a file with a command or commands that you can run instead of typing them out manually. So pretty much what you're doing is you're copying, pasting, or typing out your commands into a file, saving it, so that way you can run it later instead of having to type everything out again. Scripts can be run manually, or they can be set up to run on a schedule. Scripts are typically used to automate day-to-day processes like backups, log-on, log-off scripts, so scripts that'll do things like change your background and change your settings when you log in, also to be able to gather information about computers and more administrative tasks. So PowerShell ISE for scripting. PowerShell ISE is actually meant to be used for scripting. ISE actually stands for Integrated Scripting Environment. So this is what PowerShell ISE looks like. I have actually already modified some things to add the commands window and the script window. If you go at the top, you can do view and you can actually get rid of the script pane, put it back. You can change where the script pane is at. So I can say show script pane over to the right, and there it is instead of at the top. I personally like the script pane at the top. I feel like it's a little bit easier to read. I also like having the commands add in over here on the right so I can actually look for my commands. And then your regular PowerShell window is actually at the bottom here. So when working in PowerShell ISE, on the script pane, which is this pane right here, you'll notice that it says untitled.ps1. I haven't really done anything with it yet, so there's no name for it. PS1 is actually the PowerShell scripting file format. So if you write a file in another program and need to save it as a PowerShell script, remember that it's .ps1. That's also if you're looking through files and you find one that's .ps1, you know it's a PowerShell script. So here I wrote a script to get some information about the BIOS. So what you do in here is you write your command or commands that you want. So say, for example, I wanted to do more than that and get more information. I could do get and then CIM. And you'll notice the nice thing here is the IntelliSense tells us, hey, guess what? There is a command that matches. There's actually a couple. So you can go through here. And if you also notice when you put your mouse over it, you'll be able to click on it, or you can just use the up and down arrows to choose one. And when you choose one at first, you'll notice you'll get that nice little information, kind of like you do with the help command in a regular PowerShell. So once you have the one you want selected, you hit enter and it will actually complete it for you. And you can see there. And then whatever item you want, if you wanted the CPU information, that would be processor. And here I'm going to format it as a list so it's easier to read. So I'm going to pipe a list. And then I'm going to pipe a file. The first one has bio2.txt for the BIOS. I could call this CPU2.txt, so it pipes it to a file called CPU2.txt. Now remember from our piping to file lesson, if we pipe anything to a file, the file doesn't have to exist. If it does not exist yet, what it'll do is it will actually create the file for you. So once you have your script written, there are a couple ways to run. Up here, you'll notice that you have a little play button. And then you can also select part of it and just play the part of it you want. So for example, I could just run that by going there and clicking there. Now, if you want to run the whole thing, you can do the run. You can also go to File and Run, or you can just do F5 to run it. So once you run it, you'll notice that down here on your regular PowerShell that you get a little bit of output. You see that it ran that and it ran that. You won't get much usually unless there's an error. If there's an error, you'll get a big old wall of red text. Otherwise, it'll show that it ran it. Now, if I want to actually open up the file, I can go to the directory, or down here in regular PowerShell, I can just type in the name of the file since it's in the same directory that we're working with. So I want to open the CPU one, and notice that it opens for me. Now notice that this script created the file for me, and it gave me the information for the CPU, which is pretty cool. Now you can see this could be super useful if you're working with computers and need to get information about them. And that's pretty much PowerShell ISC. Now next, you could use Notepad for scripting. So some people, they don't necessarily want the whole interface. They just want to write their script and that's it. And that's fine. You can do that in Notepad. So what you would actually do is you would go ahead and open up Notepad. And here you can see I created one already. And you can see I have a couple pieces of information here for a couple of items to run. Now, one thing you'll notice is that obviously in Notepad, you're not going to get IntelliSense, you're not going to get autocomplete, you're not going to get all the fancy, pretty things you do in ISC, but this is great for if you just want to do quick and dirty PowerShell script and you're done. So what I have here is the file that I already created. Now, if I wanted to create a brand new one, I can open up a new Notepad. And when I do this, I can type in the commands I want. So I'm going to just get some information about the computer. And again, you notice that there's no IntelliSense. So any typos I do or anything like that, I have to go back and fix. So I'm going to get information about the desktop. I'm going to format that list too, again, just because I want to make sure that it's easy to read. And then I can actually output it to a file too. So you'll see here, I have a script that's going to get information about the Win32 desktop. So I'll go ahead and save that. And when you save it, you'll notice that it normally goes to text. You'll want to change it to all files so you can save it as the proper. And I'm going to save this as my test script 2.ps1. Remember, when you save it, you have to put a .ps1 so it knows it's a PowerShell file and save it. Now, there's nothing you could really do here in Notepad, but if you were to go into your file directory here, and you'll notice that it has .ps1. If you were to right-click it, you can choose Run with PowerShell, and it'll run. Now, the PowerShell will pop up and disappear pretty quickly. You might not have even seen it, but once it's run, you'll notice we get this new file, desktop2.txt, which was the file, if you remember looking at our PowerShell script that we were piping to. Look at that, we got information about our desktop. So it's a little more complicated with Notepad because you actually have to go find the file, run it, and all that good stuff. But you can still do scripting in Notepad if that's what you want to do. So we looked at PowerShell ISC and we looked at Notepad, but there are a couple other tools that you can use. We have Notepad++, which allows you to color code your commands so you can easily see what you're doing. And you also have Visual Studio that will also automatically color code your commands. Visual Studio does have some IntelliSense items in it like PowerShell ISC, so it is super useful as well. So post-assessment time. If you wanted to run a script you created in Notepad, how would you go about doing it? Would you find the saved PS1 file, right-click, Run with PowerShell? Would you F5 in Notepad? Could you go to File and Run in Notepad? Or you can't run a script created in Notepad. So you can go ahead and pause, and I'll give you a second to figure it out. All right, the answer is A. You'd find the saved PS1 file and right-click Run with PowerShell. B and C are used for PowerShell ISE, and D is incorrect. You totally can create a script in Notepad, save it, and run it later. So that's it for this video. We talked about PowerShell scripting and PowerShell ISE in Notepad.